Okay, now if we're given 2 points, we should also be able to find the slope between those because there was a formula that we could use. We can look at slope as rise over run, but remember we also had that formula that said slope equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we can use that to help us with, as long as we have 2 points, we can find the slope. In fact, let me go ahead and write that formula down here. So this would be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, as long as we can identify which one is which, then we're good to go. This being our first point, I'm going to label this my x1, y1. And since this is my second point, I'm going to label this x2, y2. It really doesn't matter. This one could have been the second point, and this one could have been the first point. It doesn't matter at all. What matters is that the x and the y must both be 1s in this point, and they must both be 2s in this point. If I had done it backwards, then these would have had to have both been 2, and these would have had to both been 1. You can't interchange them, but you can switch the points. That's okay. Alright, so now let's replace what we know. Instead of y2, in this case that's a -8, so I'm going to replace that with -8. Instead of y1, my y1 is supposed to be a -1. For x2, my x2 here, they said is a -2. And instead of x1, I'm going to replace that with this 4. So now what I have is -8 minus, don't forget this minus here, minus a -1, which makes that technically a +1, over -2 minus a 4. And now we simplify both the numerator and the denominator. -8 plus 1 would be -7 over -2 minus 4 would be -6. And now we can't simplify the numbers any, but a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So this is positive 7/6. That would be the slope between these 2 points. Let's try another one. And again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to write my formula and replace each one of those entries there. So write your formula first, especially as you're getting started, so that you don't lose anything. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and write x1, y1, x2, y2 above my points also. Just helps us to be able to keep everything straight. Okay, so instead of y2, we're going to be using a -5. And instead of y1, we're using 0. Instead of x2, we're using 0. And instead of x1, we're using -8. So now let's clean this up a bit. Here we have -5 minus 0. So I'm going to go ahead and write that out. Over. Here we have 0 minus a -8. Well, minus a -8 would be +8. And then let's simplify. So -5 minus 0 is -5. 0 plus 8 would be 8. Now this will not simplify down any, so our answer is -5/8. That would be the slope between those 2 points.